Welcome to the best and hardest Alphabet Platinum Challenge you will find on YouTube. I got a call from Kim Jong-un declaring it so. For those of you that don't know, we were picking a game that starts with each letter of the alphabet, starting from Z, going all the way up, getting the Platinum slash 100% on each of them. So far, we have done Zombie Army 4, Ys 8, XCOM 2, Wolfenstein 2, Visage, Undertale, The Evil Within, Sifu, Resident Evil 2, Quake 2, Psychonauts, and Outlast 2. Have some pretty rough games to do still, including Hollow Knight, Fortnite, BO3, Back for Blood, among some others. But for our endgame, I went with Nier Automata. Let's break this platinum journey into some steps. Step 1, complete the first story playing as 2B, getting whatever miscellaneous trophies I can get. Step 2, do the second playthrough playing as 9S. Step 3, do the third playthrough playing as A2. Step 4, run my ass over to the trophy shop to get the remaining trophies. So let's jump into it. Spoiler warning for this awesome story. First off, this story is super unique. It is told over the course of multiple playthroughs looking at three different characters. Each playthrough has different story aspects and explains more and more of the story. The first two playthroughs are somewhat similar, following the main characters 2B and 9S, and looking at the story through their eyes. The story is pretty convoluted and there's a lot going on, but the basic story is we are androids and we are fighting a war against machines who took over Earth. So our first playthrough is playing as 2B, an absolute badass that is pretty apathetic towards everything, showing little emotion. I start the game in the tutorial area, and this tutorial is legit so long. And if you lose all your health, you have to redo the entire thing, no checkpoints. Luckily, it wasn't too bad, and I got through it by the grace of God and popped the first trophy for completing the tutorial. We learned that our home base is in space. Basically, the machines took over Earth and humans fled to space, made androids to fight back, and have been sending them back to fight. So we find our partner, 9S, and get ready to get sent back. 9S seems much different from us in that he thinks more about what's going on and decisions people make. He even has moments where he shows emotions that is unlike the other androids. So I go drop down to Earth and pop a trophy for arriving at the city ruins. First thing I instantly noticed from this game is how unbelievable the soundtrack is. Dropping into the city, I just liked walking around and listening to the music and seeing the gorgeous landscape. After probably an hour of taking it in and getting used to the controls, I decided to get on with my objective. I followed the marker and stumbled upon a resistance camp and meet the leader, Anemone. To be honest, I forget how it's pronounced, so we're just gonna go with Anemone. She's the one that is gonna give us a lot of the main objectives and missions. She gives us some basic quests to get to know the other camp members, and by doing one of these quests, I get a trophy for completing my first quest. After doing this, I get word to basically go to the first level of the game, the desert area. On my way there, I decided to go and play with some of the wildlife, and by giving them some food, you can basically just ride it around. So I did this, and eventually got a trophy for riding an animal for 5 kilometers. Now off to the desert. I loved this place so much, mostly because of the soundtrack. Like, truly amazing. I made my way through the level when eventually we come across a minor character called Jackass. Yes, that is their name. And they blow a hole open for us to continue on our merry way. I eventually find a robot, and he tries running away from us. We basically play hide and seek, chasing him, going through some other enemies, and eventually catch him in a big crater in the ground. And we find hundreds of other robots. And well, we walked in on a giant robot orgy. Yep, no, you heard that right. A giant robot orgy. And instead of joining in on the fun, I decide to just start slaughtering all of them. And eventually, cutscene triggers, and from this orgy spawns in another android named Adam. It's a pretty quick, easy boss fight, but at the end there's a chase sequence, and once I made it out of that oiled up robot dickfest, I got a trophy for finishing the desert area. Very confused as to what is going on. That was pretty weird, but let's just go back to the resistance camp and forget all of that. And I get handed another quest to go to the amusement park. Surely things can't get more weird than that. And this is another place I fell in love with. Again, the music here was just amazing and might have been better than the desert. I love just going around and listening to it during the fights. During this area, I decided to go and get some miscellaneous trophies. The first one was interesting. So I basically had to look up 2B's skirt, and she gets mad and like kind of swipes the camera away. And I had to do that 10 times. And after feeling like a creep, I eventually got that trophy. There were some friendly machines kind of just hanging out, and I decided to put them on a one-way ticket to Bump City, and got a trophy for destroying 10 friendly machines. I made my way through the level battling enemies, had to fight a tank, ride a roller coaster, and eventually made it to the boss battle against the opera singer. This is where I had my first death of the game. And the death mechanics in this game are kinda similar to Dark Souls games, where you can go and retrieve your body. Well, after doing that, I got a trophy for having my body collected. I finally beat her, and shortly after got a trophy for completing the amusement park area. I then find a robot that convinces me to follow it along a journey to a little village. In this village is a robot named Pascal, who I absolutely loved. So despite us being in a war with the machines, this village is peaceful and does not fight at all. Rather, they just want to be happy and live in harmony with everyone. We are, however, apprehensive about trusting them. Then ensues a back and forth quest of going to the resistance camp to give them stuff from Pascal, and back to Pascal to give him stuff from the resistance camp, and so on. Upon leaving is the next story objective. There is now a huge attack on the city ruins. We now have to fight this giant-ass machine and use the flight units some more. And these things are so cool. It adds such a different dimension to the fighting gameplay. And it's not super common, but enough where it feels fresh each time. Upon beating the boss, we find out that there is now a ginormous crater in the middle of the city. So obviously, this is going to involve us dropping down to go to the next area. Go through some underground tunnels, and pretty soon come to a part where we find the entrance to an alien base. In here is Adam and his brother he named Eve. These two, we find out, are pretty much the main antagonists of our playthrough. And we find out during, basically them talking a lot, that aliens originally brought the machines to Earth to take over, but that those aliens died off a long time ago, and it's just the machines now. I now have a battle against Eve, while Shitbird sits off to the side touching himself. Eventually he gets sick of fighting me, and they basically just run away. And this pops a trophy for me completing the alien ship. Still kinda confused as to what's going on, but whatever, we're just gonna go back to the resistance camp to get another objective. And this is to go off to the forest area. This is another pretty cool area that eventually leads to the castle area. And it turns from an open world exploring to a 2D side-scrolling, like beat-em-up type of game, which was honestly pretty cool. After making my way to the top, a gang of robots attack me, and then there's a cutscene where we are introduced to a new character, A2. She stabs a little robot in a crib, who ends up actually being the king of the forest people, and then we have to battle her. The battle isn't awful, and just have to pick up on kind of the new moves she does, but eventually she decided she's bored and just runs away. I then get a trophy for completing the forest area. Go back to the machine village and get another quest, this time to go to the flooded city. I go there and see buildings falling in the water, just completely destroyed. This area isn't too long, and I made my way to the opposite end, where I now have another boss battle. And this boss legit felt like an endgame JRPG boss. It was massive and had multiple phases to it. It is fought pretty much exclusively in the flight unit, and during this fight I got the trophy for destroying 255 enemies while in the flight unit. I destroyed the Big Ugly and finished the area getting a trophy for completing the flooded city. 9S gets blasted away during this fight and we are now trying to find him. This is the first time 2B starts showing some emotions and being worried about her comrade, which honestly was super cool to see. To be honest, I got lost during this and had no idea where in the world I had to go. But I collected some more money and got a trophy for having at least 100,000 G on me at one time. And I eventually figured out, and when I say I eventually figured out, I mean viewers in chat helped me figure out where to go, and I got a new ability called Scanner. I found someone who had some information on 9S, and ended up finding an area that looked like an alternate reality called the Copied City. This area is pretty small and linear. At the end, I find Adam, who has 9S strung up on the wall. Time to get some payback. This is a multiple stage boss fight where Honky Pete refills his health bar. Eventually, I beat him and triggered his death scene, and free 9S, who is still somehow alive. I go and save him, and we get a trophy for completing the copied city. There are also a lot of bodies scattered on the ground, and there's a mechanic where you can kind of interact with them, and either like get health or some money. But after doing this throughout the game, I finally got my trophy for collecting 100 bodies. My next objective is now to go back to the tutorial area of the abandoned factory. This is basically a machine hangout, and they even started their own religions. And long story short, they end up being upset, and as to appease God, or just being upset in general, they just kind of start hurling themselves off the ledges into magma, and things just kind of get more and more confusing. At this point, I am still by myself because 9S is recovering, but I make my way through the factory battling a lot of robots, and eventually come across a robot being controlled by 9S. He doesn't do much other than talk to us and help us unlock some other areas, and eventually I come to a boss. Boss is invincible, and 9X is able to hack into it and make it non-invincible, and then I could mollywop the shit out of it. Fight ends, I talk to Pascal a little, then I get my trophy for completing the abandoned factory. Quickly find out about an attack that's happening at the resistance camp, so I made my way back to deal with the enemies there, freeing the camp members. There are some fights that I have to go through, but eventually it leads to the city center, and this is where the final battle against Eve takes place. He is in shambles after he killed his brother, filled with rage and despair. This is another multi-phase boss where he, of course, has a move where his health goes back to full. And this happens multiple times. 9S goes and hacks into him, and we are finally able to bring his health down to zero, beating him and reuniting him with his brother. After this, we walk over to 9S and find out he was infected with a virus from hacking into Eve, and he has to be put down. And he asks us to do it, and 2B is super emotional during this, and instead of a quick death, 2B decided to strangle him. Aside from the obvious, stupid way of killing him, this scene was honestly pretty amazing. 2B finally and fully falls into her humanity and is crying, and you can see the sorrow and pain on her face as she has to do this. But then we see all the machines around us, and their eyes light up green, and we hear 9S talking to her, and his consciousness survives within the local machine network. And that's where the story ends, and I get a trophy for getting Ending A. And you might be wondering, why would it be called Ending A? Well, that's because there's endings that go all the way to Z, so the full alphabet. Much like my alphabet challenge I'm doing. Pretty ironic, huh? Might be a good time to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. But also, side note, the end credit song is absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend listening to it. It's called The Weight of the World, but I don't think I can play it here, so just go look it up after watching the whole video. Anyway, so first playthrough done. Time to start the second playthrough, this time playing as 9S. This playthrough has a lot of similar events playing out, except we see things from 9S's point of view. So when they aren't together, we'll see some new stuff. But the coolest part of this playthrough is because he is kind of more human. He sees all the human emotions in the machines. Going through areas that you went through before, you'll hear the machines being upset and not wanting to be hurt, or wanting to protect something that they are emotionally connected to. And it really makes you start feeling bad about everything going on, and puts a whole new perspective on the story. And it goes much deeper than the normal video game, you are good, they are bad, go save the day. So it is a super cool spin. Words are hard sometimes. 9S's combat is more based on hacking, which is fun the first few times, but gets pretty boring towards the end. But it does massive damage, so it's kind of the best way to fight. Upon doing my first hacking minigame, I get a trophy. After getting through the story a little bit, I then got a trophy for destroying 100 machine lifeforms by hacking. And I used that scanning ability that I got before, gathered 10 hidden harvest points, and got a trophy. By self-destructing 9S, he basically just runs around without pants on. And for playing like this for an hour, I got a trophy. Eventually made it to the end. I beat Eve, got ending B, which got me a trophy. One new thing we find out during this playthrough is about the humans though. So we learn that the humans became extinct a really long time ago, and the last remnant of humanity was on the moon base, basically just holding genetic remains. And Yorha, which is kind of, think of it like the organization that made us, and it's like the android faction-esque thingy. But they've been constantly telling this lie that humans are alive, to basically give the androids a sense of purpose for living and existing. Pretty deep stuff. But now begins the third and final playthrough, which is us playing as A2. Well, kinda. She's basically one of the oldest Yorha units and went rogue. But at the start of the playthrough, we were still playing as the tandem of 2B and newly restored 9S. And find out that the logic virus that infected 9S has actually spread to all the other Yorha units except us two. And we basically go and destroy all the other units, and the space base is blown up, leaving us as the only Yorha units left, and we are split up in the wreckage on Earth. We take control of 2B and learn that we are now infected as well. Continues to get worse until we realize we're done for. A2 finds us, and we ask her to help end us and take our place in saving the world. We give her our memories, and she proceeds to tickle us with her sword. As the final blow happens, 9S finally finds us and sees A2 land the final blow, having no idea what just happened. I get a trophy for watching 2B die, and then another trophy for playing as A2 for the first time. 9S begins his descent into insanity as he is overcome with rage, swearing he will get revenge on A2 for killing the one person he loved. As he charges her, this giant tower erects up from the ground by the machines, and it separates them. This third playthrough is basically two separate campaigns, one for A2, one for 9S, kind of doing these different things until they eventually come face to face. I decided to play with A2 first. She battles dealing with her previous thoughts about machines and the memories she now has from 2B. She begins to see the nuances with the machines and meets Pascal, who eventually convinces her to trust him. But things take a turn for the worse when his village is attacked by machines. A2 comes to help, but a large majority of the machines were killed off. Pascal escapes with the children, and they just run. We meet up with him in the abandoned factory, and we have to battle more machines to protect them. The always nice and peaceful Pascal becomes a murder maniac so he can protect his children. We battle against the never ending machines with Pascal's help, protecting the children. Happy, we go back to the room where they are to see every child having, permanently shut off their mainframe, if you catch my drift. Pascal is devastated and says that he taught them all human emotions, and that included fear. And the fear of being attacked again led them all to, end it. Pascal is broken and asks us to either finish him off or wipe his memory as he can't take the hurt anymore. So I wipe his memory and get a trophy for granting Pascal's final request. Honestly, it's such a sad and depressing sequence of events, and you can see A2 realizing all of this and going from a heartless badass just wanting to kill machines to seeing that they are all fighting the same battle and wrestling with her humanity all during this. But then we switch off to 9S, and he has become completely unhinged, dead set on getting his revenge no matter who gets hurt by it. His whole campaign is pretty much just going to different towers to stop all the resource recovery units, and once we do that, we get a trophy. He also finds out that the tower is designed to launch a rocket at the moon server. There's these two, pretty hot twin android things that show up again at this point. They showed up early in the story, but were pretty insignificant. But now they're kind of important. Their story is pretty complicated and would take a while to go through everything. But they kind of screwed up with the defending humanity thing, and all the other androids hated them, and they became like castouts. Well, we were trying to get into this ginormous tower rocket thing, and we have to hack into it. Problem is, there's a lot of enemies attacking me. Well, these two come and become ninja two-man shit brick houses and defend me. Um, kind of. One of them got a little glitched out and kept punching and kicking the tower instead of the enemies, so she wasn't really protecting me that much. But the other one helped. But I was finally able to hack in. But these two basically gave their lives to protect me and redeem themselves. And I got a trophy for watching the final moments of Devola and Popola. Getting through this tower, we learn Yorha was designed to lose and perpetuate the myth of humanity, and the machine network was using this war to evolve, locking them into this eternal war. We go through a dual boss fight, swapping between 9S and A2 constantly, which is honestly like a pretty fun boss fight, but eventually leads to the one-on-one showdown between the two. And this game makes you choose one character or the other to fight. I chose A2 for my first time, and we fight to the death against 9S. And honestly, kinda just sugar beared him the whole time. It's a pretty quick fight. This leads to us saving 9S and sacrificing ourselves to destroy the tower. I got a trophy for achieving A2's ending, and shortly after that I got a trophy for watching the end credits play. I then use chapter select to go back to the fight and choose 9S. Choosing him leads to both of them killing each other. We are offered a chance to join the now peaceful machine network, which changed the tower's function to an ark containing our memories. And the two pods that were following us around all game, which have also learned to have their own consciousness and feelings, defy all their orders to delete the Yorha data. Even with the possibility of them repeating the same thing in the future, the pods are hopeful that they will be able to build a new future. So honestly, there's so much going on, but I want to try and keep it shorter. Could spend an hour just talking about the story, but tried giving a little bit of the basics. So I loved my time at this game, and because I wanted to always look fondly on this game, and honestly, I think a platinum grind would have taken away some of that joy. So I decided to go and use the in-game store to buy trophies. Yes, this game is super unique and has one of the coolest game mechanics ever. There's a store in-game where you can buy trophies for in-game currency, and then the trophies unlock. So buckle in for the trophy popping bonanza. I got trophies for achieving all endings, 80% of all quests achieved, 80% of all archives achieved, 80% all unit data achieved, 80% all plug-in chips achieved, all pod programs obtained, any weapon upgraded to the highest level, all weapons upgraded to the highest level, all pods upgraded to the highest level, 50 machines destroyed by remote control, 50 machine life forms destroyed with berserk mode, all pods found, 20 different kinds of fish caught, a meal shop used for the first time, a meal destroyed, and visiting the place of memories. And after that, the sweet, sweet platinum popped. I know some people are against the trophy shop, but honestly, I loved it. When I look back at this game, I only have positive feelings about it. No negative feelings about having to mindlessly grind or do boring quests or use a guide to find hundreds of collectibles. None of that. Just happiness of getting to enjoy the story, listening to the amazing soundtrack, and just getting emotionally attached to some great characters. And with that, completes our platinum journey. On to the rankings. For difficulty, I'm giving this game a 4 out of 10. If you aren't actively level grinding, you will be severely underleveled throughout the game, which can make fights feel more difficult than they're supposed to be. Overall, it's not too difficult, but it does require putting in some effort to get through. For grind, I'm also giving this game a 4 out of 10. Going through 3 playthroughs is kind of rough, but the story is different each time and really keeps your attention throughout. Also, the trophy shop lowers this rating by a lot. Not having to do all the annoying and drawn out collectibles and grinding makes it so much better. But doing 3 playthroughs of a full game, you need to get at least a 4. That gives us a true ranking of 4 out of 10. Onto the BS meter. For those of you that don't know, this gets a score of either 0 or 1 and gets added to the final score. If a game has something outside of normal gameplay to get the platinum, it gets a 1. This game, however, gets a 0. This is such a straightforward, enjoyable experience. No bullshit going on whatsoever. So that gives us a final true ranking of 4 out of 10. For recommendation, I'm giving this game a 9 out of 10. This game was unbelievable. The soundtrack is one of the best of any game I've played, like right up there with Kingdom Hearts. The story is captivating, and you really want to find out what happens next. It's not super long, and the trophy shop makes this honestly such an amazing platinum experience where you get to decide what parts of it you want to do. The only reason it doesn't get a 10, though, is the gameplay begins to feel pretty repetitive towards the end. I was pretty underleveled, and my attacks did such little damage. The only way for me to do like any effective damage was to hack them, and that is such a boring minigame after you have to do it 800 times. So the fights begin to feel drawn out towards the end. Thank you everyone who tuned in to see me lose my mind. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you can follow along with the rest of the challenge and continue to see me quickly lose my sanity. We stream every game for this challenge over at Twitch, and we'll leave a link in the description below. Lastly, we have a Discord, which will also have a link in the description. Have rules for completing certain games, as well as a channel to request help with trophies where I will either hop in the game to help you drop items or weapons so you don't need my help, or at the very least give tips and tricks on how I went about getting the trophy. I will see you guys in the next video where I take on PS1 Classic Medieval. That's it. I'm just calling the electric company.